You're listening to the Food Truck Empire podcast, where we talk about great food, big trucks, and how to launch a profitable food truck business. Here's your host.
Yeah, Food Truck Empire podcast, episode number 27. This is Brett. This week we rejoin Anthony Salvagno as he shares how he developed a unique menu for his food truck, Switch It Up, and discuss how he's gone about sourcing product for his business, along with the balancing act he's needed to make between his desire to use locally sourced organic products with the realities of how expensive that could end up being. To make sure you're up to speed, Salvagno is in the process of starting his own food truck, and we're following along with him as he builds his business. He could succeed, he could fail. That's really what makes this case study so exciting, and we're really happy that he's allowing us to follow him along on the journey. This week, we're covering the creation of Salvagno's menu and how he's sourcing product. And if you want to get caught up, I also interviewed Salvagno in December about how he wrote his business plan, and you can find that in the link within episode 27 show notes. So, without further delay, let's get straight into today's interview. Okay, let's transition a little bit now to the second thing that you talked about during your introduction, which was sort of the beginnings of the process of creating a unique menu for yourself. And I know you dipped into your personal history and your personal story of really, really loving peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and then, fast forwarding into adulthood, and then started sort of still loving it, but starting to put a spin on it. I know there are a lot of other food truck owners that also dip into their personal story as well. Maybe they're from a foreign country and they don't have the type of Indonesian food that they used to have at home, so they create a food truck about it, that sort of thing. But did you do any other type of market testing or trying out different recipes with your friends? How I guess are you going about determining whether or not people want to pay for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches?
So I did do some market testing. Obviously, my friends were basically my guinea pigs.
Yeah.
My brother is actually going to be working with me on the truck. His name's Jason, and he is a Culinary Institute of America trained chef. So I'm leaving most of the recipe heavy lifting to him. But the initial sandwich concepts are mine, and we've discussed the menu ideas together, and basically is this viable? Would this flavor combination work? And we both work together to kind of flesh out the bad ideas and improve the good ones. But there was actually a lot of times I'd throw quite a party, and I guess there's no better way to test your sandwiches out than on a bunch of drunk friends. So I'd make it's kind of funny. I remember this one party I had where there was just tons of food and everybody was absolutely stuffed, and I was like, so do you guys want to try the PB&J sandwiches? And they're like, oh, I don't know, I'm really full, I can't eat anymore. And I was like, oh, okay. So I go inside and I make 5 sandwiches anyway, and I cut them into 8s, and I put them outside, and I go back inside to make 5 more, and I literally didn't even get back to the kitchen when I turned around and all the sandwiches were gone.
Wow.
And I was like, well, I guess those were winners.
Yep, for sure.
I don't remember what those were at the time, but I actually do remember one of them. It was the first time I had tried to make something that resembled a s'more.
Okay.
So I had used I don't remember what bread I made, but I had done this wheat bread, and I had just bought a culinary torch, which actually was broken, so it made it impossible to make these sandwiches. But I took Nutella and some peanut butter, and because I didn't want to make the sandwich any sweeter, I didn't sweeten the peanut butter. And I took big marshmallows and put 4 of them on top of the Nutella, and then I took the culinary torch and toasted them so that the marshmallows came out like that campfire feeling. And just left it out there. And I think that was the sandwich that got eaten first because people were like, "Oh, what's this one?" I'm like, "Oh, that's a new one. I'm calling it the s'more for now until I can come up with like a better name for it." So that name actually kind of just stuck. And people were just like, "Wow, this thing is insane!" Especially like you get the toasted marshmallow feel to it, and the chocolate of the Nutella, which actually wasn't Nutella at the time. I was using this Italian hazelnut spread, which was basically the Italian version of Nutella. Or I should say, like, the imported Italian version of Nutella. And so, so there was just, like, a ton of parties that I threw where I'd put out, like, 4 or 5, like, test sandwiches, and people would just go crazy for them. I'd also bring them on car trips, like road trips, because when you're forced to eat, I mean, when you have nothing to eat on the road, you'll eat pretty much anything. And so it's like, you know, am I going to convince my friends to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches if I can make them a hamburger instead, or if they're forced to do it, and give me their like real honest opinion. So I kind of went about it in like a sneaky way, but it worked. And so actually the person who presented with me at the business plan challenge is my current girlfriend. And she told this story of how like I forced her to bring these sandwiches on a road trip to Vegas. And she was like, "Really? You're going to make me eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on the car ride?" And I'm like, "Trust me, like I'm making like 3 different loaves of bread, and I'm making like each sandwich to be paired with each loaf of bread." Yep. She's like, "I'll try it, but like we're stopping at McDonald's first chance we get." And, you know, like by the time we got to Vegas, I think I had made like a dozen sandwiches. And between 3 people, at least 8 of them were eaten. And it's not that far of a drive. It's like a 8-hour car trip. So it's like, you know, lunch, dinner, breakfast worth of like sandwiches amongst 3 people in one like sitting. Yeah. So she told that at the business plan competition and got a good laugh at everybody. But the best part of the story was like hearing it from her perspective and saying that she was like a believer in this.
Yeah, that was a really great explanation of, you know, how you're testing your food, making sure that there's a market for it. What I'm wondering now is how are you going to go about sourcing the food that you serve there? I know that you mentioned that you have cooked bread in the past, and obviously you're going to need peanut butter, jelly, that sort of thing, also for your truck. Have you thought about where you're going to source the materials once you get the business launched?
Yeah, so a lot of the, like, idealistically, all of the food would be, like, organic and local, and all that good stuff. And I think that's kind of unrealistic. Like, I would love for it to be all locally sourced. And I'm going to go out and say that, like, I definitely am having the nuts sourced by a local vendor. There's a large peanut producer here called Sunland, and it's a farmer-owned organization.
Oh, cool.
And I'm announcing that now, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but a lot of people may have heard that Sunland about a year ago or a year and a half ago, there was like an E. coli outbreak in their plant. So it's like really risky for me to just say that I want to use their peanuts, especially knowing that there was this E. coli outbreak. And they were like a national producer of peanuts. And so, like, I definitely want to support local farmers, and it's so much easier to just go to the store and buy, like, a jar of Skippy or something like that. It cost me, you know, like, literally 5 cents a sandwich to make that. Whereas if I go to the local vendor, it would cost me, like, 40 cents a sandwich. But, you know, I think it's worth doing the local route as opposed to going to, like, a national producer. As far as like other means, it's really hard because I think that a food truck should be, you know, like it should be like this big gourmet thing. I love like the whole food truck movement. But a lot of food trucks, at least here in New Mexico, don't really produce, you know, it's not my idea of a food truck. Like it should be relatively inexpensive and you should be able to get the food quickly and you should be able to eat it with your hands. Yep. And it's, you know, like, there's a burger truck in town that they're called the Rustic Truck, and they have like literally amazing burgers, but they're so juicy that it becomes like not a handheld food anymore. And I remember doing my market research that I was there and I bought from this food truck for the first time. And it took me like 25 minutes to get my burger, which must have been like the longest burger wait in the history of the planet. And I was just like, this is not like what a food truck is for. There's like literally 100 people who are waiting for 3 food trucks to produce food, and nobody can get their food in under 20 minutes. There's something wrong. And not only that, but there's not a single menu item on any of these trucks that's below $7. And that also felt wrong to me. It's like, you're going to a food truck because you want it quick and because you want it to be relatively inexpensive, but you don't like, you can go to a restaurant if you want like a $7 to $15 meal and you want to have to use a fork and knife. At least you'll get to sit down. Like, here you have to stand up and eat this awkward salad or nacho plate or whatever. And so, like, as far as like local food goes, it's really hard to make sure that you're like under a certain dollar amount if you're buying locally sourced ingredients. Like, I was just at a farmer's market fair thing here in New Mexico, and you know, like a jar of honey for like 8 ounces was like $10, and I'm like, I can go to the grocery store and buy honey from, you know, wherever the heck they produce it for, you know, $3 for the same amount. That would make my sandwiches like $10 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Nobody's going to eat that.
Yeah.
And so, so I think it's like finding a balancing act between like local ingredients and also like organic stuff. I also like personally don't put all that much stock into organic food. Like, as a scientist, I have no problem with genetically modified food. Because like essentially it's just a change in an organism's DNA, and it's not necessarily how your body's going to accept that change. I don't know if that makes any sense, but like, I think that there's a large stigma about like GMO food and, you know, non-organic food. Like, there's a lot of farmers who do, you know, they produce their crops in a healthy way, and it's not organically certified because the certification for organic makes their food really expensive, and they lose crops like crazy, and it's just kind of like hard for them to survive if they do it that way. So like, I think for me, it'd be finding like the farmers who do it in, you know, moral ways, and it's also, you know, safe to eat, and it's also relatively inexpensive. But even if it's more expensive than, you know, buying bell peppers from the grocery store, I don't mind eating that cost as long as, you know, I can maintain the integrity of the product as well as be proud of where I'm getting it from.
Yeah. Yeah, you touched on a couple things there. One that I thought was important is you were talking about wanting to create something that you could serve quickly to customers that come there, because a lot of people don't want to wait 25 minutes or 30 minutes or potentially even longer for a lot of items. And I think that's a really important concept for a lot of food trucks to understand. I know I spoke with Hamilton. He owns a food truck out of Memphis, Tennessee, and that's basically what he said was, that was like his mantra was, you know, the food trucks that are getting food out fast, they make money. And the food trucks that take 15, 20 minutes for, you know, to create the food, they just aren't making that much money, because you've got this tight little window a lot of times where, you know, it's lunchtime and you've got this 11 o'clock to kind of 1 o'clock time period where you've really got to be able to get these things out fast. And if you can't do that, you're losing out on customers just because you can't get it out the window fast enough. So that was kind of one of his big things, was try to do something, obviously that tastes really good, that people crave, that sort of thing, but also remember to keep it simple so that you can get it out in a timely fashion. Because, you know, even if you do have a great burger, to your point, which it sounds like you had at that other local food truck, you know, if you know that it's going to take half an hour to get that burger, you know, you might not decide to eat there again just on the basis of that, because you don't have enough time to wait around.
Oh yeah, I went